I now request everyone to please kindly rise for the national song and the national anthem.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Before we commence today's proceedings, let us anchor ourselves in a principle that lies at the very heart of strategic thought, responsible leadership, and purposeful action. Jnanam Paramam Balam. Knowledge is the supreme strength. May this enduring ideal guide not only the dialogue and direction of today's deliberations, but also serve as a constant compass for this institution and for all of us in thought, discourse, and decision for all the years to come. Respected Honorable Governor of Uttarakhand, His Excellency Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Vishishta Seva Medal, retired. Honorable Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Sena Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal. GOC-NC Central Command, Lieutenant General Anindya Sen Gupta, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Yuddha Seva Medal. Distinguished officers of the armed forces, esteemed speakers, scholars and members of the strategic community, our friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to welcome you all to the launch ceremony of Bharat Himalayan International Strategic Manch, BHISM. Bharat today stands at a defining juncture where frontiers are no longer defined by static lines, but dynamic spaces shaped by strategy, security, diplomacy, technology and development. It is in such time that institutions that promote rigorous thought, informed dialogue and nation-centric policy research become not merely relevant but essential. It is in this broader context of ideas shaping action and thought-informing policy that we all come together today. BHISM has been envisioned as a platform to do exactly that. It is rooted in India's civilizational ethos, guided by our constitutional values and focused on the strategic clarity for the future. All the leaders who have governed, commanded and contributed to national security, your presence here today adds depth and purpose to this very endeavor. Thank you all for honoring this occasion. May I now invite His Excellency, the Honorable Governor of Uttarakhand, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, GOC-NC Central Command, General Anindya Sen Gupta and General A.K. Singh, to kindly grace the stage for the ceremonial lighting of the lamp, marking the formal commencement of today's proceedings. May I now request His Excellency the Governor to carry out the unveiling of the BHISM logo and also the formal launch of the BHISM website. To outline the vision, purpose and intellectual foundation of BHISM, it is my honor to invite Lieutenant General A.K. Singh, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Yuddha Seva Medal, Sena Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal, retired. A soldier scholar of rare distinction, he brings with him decades of exemplary service to the nation, deep operational experience and a sustained engagement with strategic thought and policy discourse. His leadership and insight provides both credibility and clarity to this initiative, as BHISM sets out to contribute meaningfully to India's national security, defense, and policy ecosystem. Sir, may I now request you to kindly address the gathering.
Jai Hind. Hon'ble Governor of Uttarakhand, General Gurmeet Singh, the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, General Anindya Sen Gupta, the General Officer Commanding in Chief Central Command, General D.G. Mishra, the General Officer Commanding Uttar Bharat area, senior veterans, friends from the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, right at the outset, I wish to thank you and express my deepest gratitude for all of you being here. Your presence here denotes solidarity to this wonderful cause. And like they say, the best gift that you can give to anybody is the gift of time. Thank you very much, each one of you, for giving us the gift of time. This idea about BHISM, the Bharat Himalayan International Strategic Manch, was mooted way back about 9 to 10 months back, and this is the brainchild of the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan. I remember that day, that distinct afternoon when I came to his office to meet him, and he told me, AK, why don't we establish a think tank in Dehradun, because it qualifies. And I will subsequently come as to why Dehradun as a place and Uttarakhand as a state qualifies so very well to house a think tank of this international stature. I also was toying with this idea, but I was only toying with the idea. I think General Anil Chauhan gave me executive instructions. And lo and behold, after a couple of months, I get a call from the office of the Hon'ble Governor. The ADC called me personally, and he said, the Hon'ble Governor wishes to meet you, and this is regarding the establishment of a think tank. The Hon'ble Governor, I suppose, had visited Lucknow and had come in contact with the tribe, and they had given a brief to him. So I came and met the Hon'ble Governor, and he broached the subject that, AK, why don't we establish a think tank? Fortunately, by that time, I had worked on the concept note and the brief modalities, and I briefed the Hon'ble Governor, sir, and I remember that day again, you were so supportive and you were so delighted at this idea. And I wish to express again my deepest gratitude, because you not only encouraged and supported us, but I think you opened the door of the Lok Bhavan to us, and that's why we are here today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I would be failing in my duty if I don't mention that the state of Uttarakhand has supported us in all ways. In fact, not only the state of Uttarakhand, but also the Uttarakhand Purv Sainik Nigam Limited. There was a program that was done specially mooting this idea about establishment of a think tank, where the ex-servicemen were present in large number. That was done in Anubhav Hall a couple of months back, where the entire meeting was presided over by none other than the Honorable Chief Minister himself in the presence of the Sainik Kalyan Mantri. This idea was debated. The Honorable Chief Minister was very supportive of this idea. Incidentally, just yesterday I met the Honorable Chief Minister, apprised him of this particular launch of the think tank. He was extremely delighted, very happy, and has assured all support which the think tank would need to function itself. So I would like to pledge, at the same time, I would also like to, in fact, apprise about the important role played by General Sabharwal, the patron of Uttarakhand Purv Sainik Nigam Limited, and the managing director, who's I think presently here, Brigadier J.N.S. Bisht. Where are you, sir? Thank you very much for all the support. Not only that, presently we are co-located with them, and I think they go out of their way in welcoming us and making us very comfortable in their premises. Having said that, now why this think tank and why in Dehradun? I would like to just very briefly dwell on it. Why this think tank is, now if you look around, I think the entire world, the geopolitics is in a state of flux. After the First and the Second World War, maximum number of conflicts are raising today, more than 50 in numbers, which implies that I think this present system, the strategic culture that is there, somewhere I see the beginning of a collapse of this kind of an existing system, which is basically predominantly based on the Western strategic culture of capitalism and profitability and competitiveness. So if that system collapses, or the beginning of the collapse has started, it has to be replaced by another system. Now and we all are aware that the pivot is slowly shifting towards the Asia. In Asia we have two giants, China and India. China definitely, both are civilizational powers. China is a civilizational power, but primarily because of the communist ideology. I think they seem to have moved away from their civilizational values, ethics and principles. That leaves only India as a country, which possibly can give an alternative strategic culture and an alternative model. Now this model cannot be based on rhetoric and jingoism. This has to be based on analysis. This has to be based on research. This has to be based on ideation. This has to be based on facts and figures. And what better not to than to have a think tank like Bharat Himalayan International Strategic Manch, and from where? From Uttarakhand, from the Devbhoomi, and from this Himalayan region will emanate a new strategic culture and a new thought process. Then Dehradun itself, if you see, is a city of great institutions. The Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, the Forest Research Institute, the Survey of India, the National Hydrographic Center, then the Wadia Institute of Geology. There is an Himalayan Institute dealing with ecology and environment. There is also an institute dealing with soil conservation and earth sciences. So there are, then if you go a little further, then in Roorkee we have the IIT, one of the most renowned IITs, which is really world famous for civil engineering. We also have the Central Building Research Institute, we have the Irrigation Research Institute. So we have all these institutions doing work in their own domain. There is a requirement whereby all this work needs to be integrated, needs to be harmonized. And I think at BHISM we intend doing that integration and that particular harmonization. Now look at the location of Dehradun. It's quite near to Delhi. And now with the road connectivity having improved, in fact the other day I was called by the National Security Advisor as a very short notice, and I took precisely 4 hours from my home to reaching the guest room and then meeting the Honorable National Security Advisor, just 4 hours in the morning. So that is the connectivity. By rail connectivity is good, the air connectivity is damn good. So, and plus for whatever factors that I have mentioned, I think Dehradun suits the best for having a think tank, that is Bharat Himalayan International Strategic Manch, of this magnitude and of this caliber. When I broached this subject with my colleagues, I got an overwhelming support. So we have a great team which has come together to get things moving. So apart from the Chief of Defence Staff himself and from self, we have Dr. Girja Shankar Mungli, who is the chairman of the Sanskriti group of school. We have a very eminent person, Mr. Sanjeev Chopra, I think, who actually bears no introduction at all. He is a very well-known figure, and he's also been, in fact, spearheading the value of words. We also have Mr. Nitin Gokhale, who's, sir, thank you very much for being here. So we have our reps in Delhi also. You have to have a deep connect with Delhi. Thank you very much for coming on board. We also have Mr. Rajan Arya. Thank you very much for being here. We also have Vice Chancellors of 2 universities. That is Dr. Diwan Singh Rawat, Vice Chancellor of Kumaon University, who unfortunately, because of poor health, because of illness, could not make it here. We also have Dr. Surekha Dangwal, the Vice Chancellor of Doon University, who also could not come because of some commitment earlier. So we have 2 Vice Chancellors on our board. Apart from that, we also have to have a deep connect with the young generation. So we have Mrs. Sanjana Singh, who would provide us that kind of a connect with the younger generation. Having said about our team, I would also like to now very briefly touch upon as to why this civilizational issue is very important, and especially at this particular point of time. I wish to state, and I would like to back, it is again, I said, it's not about rhetoric and jingoism, it has to be backed by facts. I'll give you certain example. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. You tell me which culture talks about the world is my oyster. So when India progresses, it is not India. India will not progress at the cost of any other country. When India progresses, the world will also progress. We also have Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukhat Bhave. So we are actually wanting the progress of all and not just the progress. And if you see what the polity, and especially at a time when our political hierarchy has decided that by 2047 India would be a developed country, and we are actually charting through the Amrit Kal, it becomes extremely important for a think tank of this nature to sort of ideate and take things forward in this particular direction. Apart from this, I would also, since I am a Gurkha officer, in Durga Shakshati there is a beautiful Navaran mantra, Om Ain Green Kling Chamundaya Viche. Just see the thought process if I tell you what is the meaning of this. Hey Brahma Rupini, hey Mahashakti, mujhe Brahma mein sthit kar. Gati, mati, nirmalta, shanti aur sthirta pradhan kar. Hey Shama Murti, mujhe Maryada mein rakh. शीलवान, विनम्र और विजयी बना। दुख, रोग, भय और संकटों से मेरी रक्षा कर। हे आनंदमयी माँ, मुझे मधुरता, प्रेम, प्रसन्नता, उत्साह, भावना, सिद्धि, संपन्नता, तुष्टि और पूर्णता प्रदान कर। परम पराक्रम वाली अजय रौद्र रूपिणी चंडिके, प्रसन्न हो जाओ। What profound expression when this encapsulated in just one small simple mantra. We are not too far away from Tapkeshwar. You know, people say that the adhyatm, the spirituality makes you non-violent. Lord Shiva is the god of destruction. We are not too far from Tapkeshwar. And there is a beautiful Rudrashtakam which was actually recited by none other than Lord Ram before he invaded Lanka. Namamish Nishan Nirvan Rupam Vibhum Vyaptam Brahma Veda Surupam Nijam Nirgunam Nirvikalpam Niriham Chidakash Makash Vasam Bhajayam Nirakar Momkar Muram Turiyam Gyagyan Godit Misham Girisham Karalam Mahakal Kalam Kripalam Gunagar Sansar Param Natokam Tusharadri Sankash Gauram Gambhiram Manobhut Koti Prabhashiri Shariram Sunmoli Kallolini Charu Ganga Lasad Bhal Bhalendu Kanthe Bhujanga Chalat Kund Lambru Sunetram Vishalam Prasanna Nanam Nilkantham Dayalam मृगाधीश्चर्मा मरम मुंडमालम प्रियम शंकरम सर्वनाथम भजामि प्रचंडम प्रकष्टम प्रगल्भम परेशम अखंडम अजम भानुकोटि प्रकाशम त्रियशूल निर्मूल नमशूल पानी भजे हम भवानी पति भाव गम्यम कलातीत कल्याण कल्पांतकारी सदा सज्जनानंद दाता पुरारी चिदानंद संदोह मोहा फारी प्रसीद प्रसीद प्रभो मन्मथारी न यावद उमानाथ पादारविंदम भजन्ति लोके परिवा नराणाम न तावत सुखम जरा जन दुखो के तातप्यमानम प्रभोई पाहि आपन नमामि शंभो रुद्राष्टकमिदं प्रोक्तम विप्रेन हर्तोषे ये पठन्ति नरा भक्त्या तेषां शंभु प्रसीदति. Why this especially here? I would just like to sort of sign off with a very small note that the word is extremely important. Word is vibration. When you put a pen to paper and when you put that word into a printed form, it carries enormous power. And that is why think tank like BHISM are extremely important, because we ideate, we put pen to paper, we give out strategic thoughts and strategic direction. And why? Because when the entire cosmos was created, there was everything. The cosmos was there, but there was no vibration, there was no life. And then Shiv played his damru, and from his damru came the Maheshwar Sutra, the 16 syllables. I oon, ral rat, I om, I ouch, haya Bharat, land mang nanam, jabay gargash, jab gargash. This is Maheshwar Sutra, the origin of the word and the life in this cosmos and in this world. And I will sign off by in fact quoting directly from Swami Vivekananda, who says, each nation has a destiny to fulfill. Each nation has a message to deliver. Each nation has a mission to accomplish. Therefore, from the very start, we must have to understand the mission of our own race, the destiny it has to fulfill, the place it has to occupy in the march of nations, and the note which it has to contribute to the harmony of races. The BHISM raises to take on that particular mantle. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for an electrifying address which has set a clear tone and context for the proceedings ahead. Today, amongst us, we have Mr. Sanjeev Chopra, a distinguished civil servant and a thought leader with extensive experience in governance, public administration and policy. His insights bring a vital institutional perspective to today's dialogue, enriching our discussions on nation building and strategic governance. I now invite Mr. Sanjeev Chopra to kindly address the gathering.
Jai Hind. His Excellency the Governor, who's an inspiration, it's always a pleasure to be with you, sir. General Anil Chauhan, the CDS, a very distinguished gentleman. Thank you for ensuring that this is launched in Dehradun, in Uttarakhand. My dear friend Ajay, for inviting me to be here. General Sen Gupta and General Mishra, Colonel Mungli, Mr. Tarun Vijay, ladies and gentlemen. You see, as has been very eloquently explained by General Singh, there was a need, there was a necessity for Bhisham to come. There is a term called Deshkal. Deshkal. So sometimes the Deshkal is just appropriate. So I think the Deshkal for Bhisham was just right, was just appropriate. And that is why we are here today to launch and to celebrate the Bhisham. In fact, the acronym Bhisham itself is so great because it's not just appropriate, it's the opportune time. Let me therefore, because I'm a student of literature, start with the historical, scriptural, and literary timelines of Bharat and the Himalayas. The Bharat and the Himalayas that we inhabit, and the significance of Himalayas. In fact, it's very difficult to recite as well as General Singh has done. So you set a bar to all of us, who are going to join you. It's going to be very difficult to follow you. But, in the 10th chapter of the Mahabharata, we have the Vibhuti Yog, in which Shri Krishna is describing all his various manifestations and his various forms. And he says, Maharshi Nam Bhriguraham. Amongst the Maharshis I am Bhrigu. Giram Asmi Ekam Aksharam. That amongst the chants know me as the Om. I am the Om, I am the Akshar Om. Yagya Nam Jap Yagyosmi. That amongst the japas I repeat the holy name. Sthavara Nam Himalaya. That amongst all things which are firm, all things which are deeply rooted, I am the Himalaya. Because Himalaya is that which is always there. Himalayas have been the guardian, they have been the soul of the country. And that brings us to the point about Bhisham Parva. Bhisham Parva, which is the 6th Parva of the 18 Parvas of Mahabharata. That's a very important chapter. And that chapter actually sets the stage for Bhisham as well. For Bhisham, our think tank. Because that's the discourse between Dharmaraj Yudhishthira with none else than Bhishma Pitama. And what are they talking about? They're talking about statecraft. They're talking about strategy. They're talking about the role and responsibility of the king, the duty and the dedication of the ministers, the commitment of the soldiers, the commitment of the army chiefs. What should the chiefs be doing? What should they be discussing? They talk about the treasury officer. They talk about the kosh. They talk about how much tax has to be collected. They talk about Shat Bhag, that the legitimate share of the king is only 1/6 of the produce. And it is this document which later on becomes the Kautilya's or the Chanakya's Arthashastra, in which we gave the treatise to the world about what kingship is, what rulership is. In fact, it is there that we realize and understand that ultimately at the end of it, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And it is this realization which later on became very famous when Lord Palmerston said in the House of Lords in 1842 that there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, but we can trace it back to that time. Because this is so important for us to understand that a nation and a civilization, and India has the great, what should one say, responsibility of being both a civilizational state and a nation state. And as General Singh elaborated, that China was also a civilizational state and a nation state, but somewhere along the line, the ideological moorings of China have prevented it from representing its entire civilization. But I would like to submit that 50 years, 60 years, 70 years is just a blip in the life of a civilization. And I have this feeling that over a period of time, the Indian and the Chinese civilizations will not only learn to live together, will leverage each other's presence, because that is the way it has to be. We are also aware of the very famous lines of the poet Allama Iqbal when he had said, "Parbat ko sabse uncha, hamsaya asma ka, wo santari hamara, wo pasba hamara." The fact is that this is the highest mountain, the neighbor of the sky. It is our sentry, it is our watchman. And the fact is that all invasions have come through Khyber Pass, which is not part of the Himalayas. The Himalayas have been our sentinel. The Himalayas have defended us for a long time. But now let us look at the Himalayas in today's context, because times change, context changes, and therefore the contests also become very different. But before that, let's also look at the Himalayas in what Kalidas said in Kumar Sambhav about the beauty of the Himalayas. He says that the Himalayas are divine. They are the adornment of the Apsaras. So you have the defense, but you also have the beauty, you have the ecstasy, you have the great thing about the Himalayas. And as has already been told by General Singh, we are so fortunate that we are living in Himalayas. I mean, let me confess that I'm just coming back from Trivandrum. Nice place, but after staying 2 days there, I realized how good Uttarakhand is because the air is so crisp. I mean, you can't take a walk. I mean, you know, it's actually you go to a for living in that part of the country because we're so blessed to be living in Uttarakhand. You know, but anyway, it is also an opportunity to visit Kanyakumari. It's also an opportunity to visit Swami Vivekananda's statue, to see his works. And at that confluence again, when the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean come together, again we get an idea of how great India is. In fact, we are the only country in the world which has an ocean named after us. The only country in the world which has an ocean named after ourselves, and I've written about it, that how there were several attempts to change the name of this ocean, but we have managed to retain this. Friends, because the CDS is going to be speaking to us about frontiers, LAC and the middle sector, therefore I'll not talk about these things. So as was said by General Singh, what is happening is that in the last several decades, so many things have changed. Most of us, not most of us, but at least most of us sitting in the front row are in our 60s, and we were born in the 60s. And therefore, from the perspective of somebody born in the 60s, some things which appeared that they'll never change, they have changed so completely. And we never thought the Cold War would come to an end. We never thought that the USSR will disintegrate. As children, we were always bothered to learn about the spellings of Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia because these were difficult spellings, and one knew that this is what they're called, but one always lost out on the spelling. The disintegration of the Soviet Union. We never thought that communist countries will come to war. We never thought that the NATO is going to be in the position that it is in today. So a lot of things are happening. We never thought in recent times that after such a bitter war, after such a cleavage, Bangladesh and Pakistan would want to get together. We don't know. So a lot of things are changing, and therefore what BHISM is going to be doing is BHISM is going to be looking at different scenarios. What is going to happen to the world, or at least what we think can happen to the world. And there are 6 scenarios that I've listed for all of us. The first is that many institutions are gone and down. I mean, the Commonwealth, for example, the non-aligned movement, for example, the WTO and the UN. Let me add that the UN is also dead, gone, and nobody is going to even, write an epitaph for them because they've lost their purpose. I mean, there is no purpose for the Commonwealth, there's no purpose for the NAM, but we keep on, doing some games and something of that sort, but those are dead and gone. The second thing that's happening is that newer, more vibrant institutions are coming up, and these are institutions like the BRICS, BRICS, the SCO, the BIMSTEC. Now, what is the unique quality of the BRICS and the G20 is that there is no fixed secretariat. The presidency keeps changing, and when the presidency keeps changing and professional networks happen, you have lean structures. So, unlike the baggage of the UN, the BRICS or the G20 does not have a very large secretariat. It's a moving secretariat, moving thoughts, moving ideas, and a lot of professional networking is happening. So when you have G20, you have agricultural scientists coming together, you have geographers coming together, you have academics coming together, you have military experts coming together. So it's a very different networking. The way the world is going to come, it will be a very different network. The third very important thing that's going to happen is that the economic power of the corporates is perhaps going to challenge the economic might of nations. We are happy that we are part of India, then there is China, then there is USA, but many countries in the world do not have any guts to face a large corporation, because the size of the corporation today, the size of the corporate today is much bigger than the size of nations. In fact, that itself is a challenge, and at BHISM we'll also have to consider how do you challenge large corporates, and how do you challenge their inner structures. For example, we all know about Google. Fewer people know that Google is part of Alphabet. Even fewer people know that Alphabet Many of the proprietary softwares of Alphabet are in Ireland. So who do you fight with? Who do you fight with? So it's a very intrinsic and a very internal thing that is going to happen. So we will have to also devote our time to where is the economic power coming from and how are we going to handle this economic power. The fourth thing that's happening is that, the fourth thing of course is the terminal decline of the US. I mean, it had to happen, but we have to thank Mr. Trump for, being a catalyst to the process. So, and the other thing that I, advantage of, being asked to speak is that you do some research. So one of the things which I realized was that by 2035, the combined GDP of India and China will exceed the GDP of USA. By 2035, that is 10 years from now, the collective GDP of of India and China will far exceed the GDP of USA. Then the next point is about leadership in the newer areas, leadership in climate change. The leadership in climate change, I mean, US decided to walk out, but it's fine. Who has taken the leadership? India has taken the leadership in the Solar Alliance, and China has taken the leadership in the Vellum COP. The commitments of India and China to reduce the emissions, to create a new kind of world is a very different proposition. Then last but not the least, there are new frontiers. The new frontiers in blue economy, the new frontiers in IT, and the new frontiers in space. Here again, India is happy. We are hosting the IT summit. It's so good that Colonel Mungli can't get a room in the IIC. I mean, everything is booked. Everything is booked. But the point is that and I was very happy today to see that the BSI, which is the British equivalent of ISI, they have ranked India as #1 insofar as the competitiveness, insofar as the preparedness for the IT is concerned. Therefore, friends, the point which I'm trying to get to is that how do we look at our 3,500 kilometer border which is the Himalayan border. Of course, we have a border with Bangladesh also, but let's look at the Himalayan border. See, contrary to what is generally said, it is not the India-China border. We have 106 kilometer Bakhan corridor. We have the POCK, the Pakistan-occupied Jammu Kashmir area, which has the Sky Shield area. Then we have the border with Tibet/China, right? And then we have a border with Nepal, and we have a border with Bhutan. Now, one is fortunately or unfortunately always concerned about Pakistan and China because our relationship with the other countries, well, at the moment Bangladesh is a bit iffy. But in the long run, as far as Bangladesh is concerned, the costs of non-cooperation with India are so high that they will sooner or later will be cooperating with us. As far as the other countries are concerned, because we train all of them at the academy, I'm quite confident that they will not go against us because we train civil servants from Bhutan, from Maldives, we used to train Bangladesh as well and Nepal. So I would expect that our relations with them will be very cordial. In fact, the IMA is also training the officers from these countries. So I think relations will be cordial. But let's now come to China and Pakistan, which is where the major challenges. Now, my own assessment is that we've always been talking about India, China, and Pakistan. My feeling is that as over the next few years, India and China are going to get closer for strategic and business reasons. Today, India's transactions with China are $155 billion. Pakistan's transactions with China are $23 billion. By the end of 2030, it is expected that India's transactions with China will be $300 billion, whereas that of Pakistan will rise to only about $30 billion. So the gap between India's engagement with China and Pakistan's engagement with China, the gap will be 1:10. And any sensible realpolitik would tend to look at this. Look, Pakistan's dependence on China is much more than China's dependence on Pakistan. Much more. So we have to work at this asymmetry as well. Again, you see India is growing at 6 to 7%. China is today growing at about 4%, and Pakistan is growing at 3%. But Pakistan's population is also growing at 2.7%, which in other words means that all the benefits which you are gaining from your GDP, you're losing out in terms of not being able to keep your demographic profile in things. Friends, I'll have to close now. as all good things must, we must let the next speakers are there. But there are three thoughts which I want to lay with you. First is that all of us, most of us here have taken the oath on the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution asks us to defend the territorial integrity of this country. The territorial integrity of this country is defined in Schedule 1, Article 1, according to which the entire area of Gilgit-Baltistan is also part of our thing, and of course Arunachal is there. Now the question is that we have three scenarios. One is that but at the same time we also have the LAC, which has been signed from 1993 by different prime ministers. So it's been signed by prime ministers of all parties in this country. So we have to ask ourselves whether we accept the de facto or we move the de facto and the de jure together. That is option one. Option two is that we let things be as they are. Or the third is that we go in for a very, that we look at the scenario in 2047, look at the bridges that we can build, because isolating Pakistan's strength is only as long as China is supporting Pakistan. Now, a very small instance that when Nepal, we have Lipu Lake border in Uttarakhand, it's in Pithoragarh district. So when, at that time, the Prime Minister of Nepal, he went and, we signed a trade agreement in which we decided to put up our trade post there. So the Nepali Prime Minister, he went and cribbed to Chinese Prime Minister, said, look, you are doing something which we claim to be, and he said, it's your problem, you sort it out. In other words, if trade and commerce is doing well, nations will go ahead and they will have to reconfigure their arrangements. I look forward to working with BHISM. I look forward to all of you giving your thoughts and ideas on BHISM, because BHISM and BHISM Parv, Shanti Parv of BHISM is what will drive us forward. Thank you very much. Jai.
Thank you, Mr. Chopra, for those thoughtful insights. It is now my privilege to invite Lieutenant General Anindya Sen Gupta, Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Yuddha Seva Medal, General Officer Commanding in Chief, 2nd Command, to deliver the inaugural address. Sir, may I now request you to kindly deliver the inaugural address.
Jai. Hon'ble Governor of Uttarakhand, General Gurmeet Singh, Chief of Defence Staff, General Chauhan, the esteemed veterans led by General A.K. Singh, leading to the creation of BHISM, eminent scholars, distinguished guests, members of academia, the youth, and officers of the formations based in Dehradun. It's my distinct honor to be able to share some ideas while attending this inauguration of BHISM. It is a foundation which is rooted because of the strategic imperatives of the Bharat Himalayan region. The strategic context and the background of the mantras laid down by General A.K. Singh, I shall not be able to emulate at all, but I shall dwell more on the international environment, because of which the requirement of think tanks is an imperative in today's world. Today, the international environment, as brought out by Shri Sanjeev Chopra, is all encompassed by volatile unpredictability and being very brittle. We are unable to predict what is going to happen after an year, 5 years, leave alone a decade. And on top of it, the rapid advances in technology, being entwined with warfare in the various conflicts which were referred to earlier, happening all over the world, is also changing the strategic context. In this most unpredictable scenario, which is not conducive at all for peaceful development, where hard power is repeatedly being seen as a currency is a reality. Op Sindoor brought out the fact that a hard power response is a necessity in our regional environment. Our nation's security policies have withstood the test of time and have been resilient in the scenarios which have been there in the past. But the scenarios which may unfold in the future, will we be able to face them with the current status of our strategies and the security policies which are there? To counter this VUCA or the Bani environment, we need a proactive, resilient, dynamic, evolving strategic formulation. And this will alone counter the unpredictability which I am trying to refer to. Our nation's aspiration to be a developed, self-reliant, culturally confident, and a regional power rising ahead to be a global power is based on, should be based on a plan. And that plan requires a futuristic strategic evolution. We as a nation stand towards, in a very decisive moment, to progress towards stability in a very unstable environment. We were sure of China, Pakistan. We were referred to as a nation with stable borders at some point in time. But the violence, the unpredictability on the borders, as well as the neighbors, Nepal, Bangladesh, and the others, have led to a belief that clarity of thought, strategic foresight, and informed policy advocacy is a need of the hour. Think tanks are a part of the security calculus of any nation. Our nation has a number of them based in Delhi, Pune, Chandigarh, even in Lucknow, Stride, which was referred to, which is part of our central command. Therefore, when the idea of BHISM was projected to us, we were quite ecstatic about taking it up and also ensuring that we add to the value and the number of think tanks so that we have different perspectives being taken up so as to have a better strategic or dynamic strategic formulation, advocacy on security issues, and also being able to deal with the unpredictable part, which is a reality in today's operational environment. Our nation requires a large number of thought leaders. We were just exposed to the large Himalayan border of 3,400 kilometers with different kinds of realities existing in different sectors. And each part may require a different plan. Overall, we require an evolving strategy. Therefore, think tanks, creation of new thought processes, doing away with the earlier mindset, creation of new mindsets is the need of the hour again. All developed countries do propagate new ideas, and in today's world, inability to evolve as per the current realities will lead to failures in the future. Mr. Sanjeev Chopra gave out 3 scenarios. The second scenario of letting things be as they are will never work, because while we may want as a peaceful nation to let things be as they are, nobody else around us is going to want that. Today it's the world of real politics where every nation is charting its own course and every nation is working towards its national interest. So we will have to work towards our national interests and we will have to explore new avenues so that we are able to dominate the various aspects of national security policy and dominate the environment as such. Why Dehradun was very eloquently explained by General A.K. Singh. I shall not dwell on that, but it is also the Drona Nagari where Acharya Dronacharya imparted Astra, Shastra and Shastra to both Kauravas as well as Pandavas. So there is a depth of strategic thought which exists here. Moreover, from the point of Surya Command or the Central Command, it is located very near to the LAC, 300 kilometers from Manapas, 545 kilometers of LAC which we look after in Central Command in Himachal and Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand is a border state and therefore having a strategic think tank is extremely important for us here. Its relevance to national security, border management, disaster management, ecology, environment, stability is very well known to all of us. And the presence of thought leaders by having so many senior veterans, knowledgeable veterans here, people of academia, civil services who are settled here will add value to this think tank. It is symbolically and a strategically correct move to have BHISM in Dehradun. The mandate of BHISM and the vision to secure India's rise through future-ready policy and relevant strategy and research is very commendable. Its mission, grounded in Indian civilization values, while engaging in contemporary global challenges, is admirable. We are looking forward to interacting with them and emphasizing on intellectual rigor, inclusive dialogue, and progressive action as we face the challenges of unpredictability in this VUCA and Bani scenarios. The focus of BHISM on foreign policy, geopolitics, disruptive technology, internal security, border management, cyberspace domains, as well as space, will strongly resonate with the realities of warfare which we will face in the future. The enablers of national power through military-civil fusion, Atmanirbharta, and interagency coordination will be most welcome through this think tank. We encourage cross-domain research and innovation and generation of various options for strategy and policy formulation. Societal and regional impact and forming cohesion in the border states, social cohesion in the border states through scholarship programs, recognition of young talent, and preventing reverse migration will be a focus of Surya Command, for which we will work through this think tank. Their emphasis on disaster management and environmental stability, which was somewhat spoken about, is extremely important to us given the large number of disasters which hit our area of responsibility in Himachal as well as in Uttarakhand, for which possibly we will be able to come out with some better plans in the future. It will add to the capacity of Uttarakhand as a state, and I am sure it will contribute by sharing the best practices of other think tanks with the state as well as with us. BHISM, with its regular seminars, publications, policy papers, I am sure in the future will become a serious contributor to the national discourse and our discourse in the command. We in the armed forces value discipline, independent, well-researched perspectives, which will enhance our strategic awareness and decision making, which I am sure will be given a way forward through this think tank. It will act as a force multiplier for us and will help us chart our course in the grey zone as we are there in Surya Command, where our responses currently, even in the tactical domain, are of paramount importance because they do have strategic implications. And the dominance and assertion on the borders, which is a requirement of the future, will require new and fresh strategic perspectives, which I am sure with the interaction which we will have with STRIVE will get us to. Unmanned resource applications, electronic warfare, domination of cyberspace, application of space right down to the tactical level are important aspects of future military research, which I am sure will be a mainstay of this think tank. And towards the end, I extend my sincere best wishes to the leadership, scholars, members of BHISM for their pursuit of excellence, and I'm confident that it will surely emerge as a respected platform, globally aware, nationally relevant, and firmly rooted in the Indian Himalayan ethos. May this Manch fulfill its aims, objectives with integrity, intellectual courage, and national commitment. I wish this institution the very best and success in shaping the ideas that strengthen Bharat's security, prosperity, and civilization confidence. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for the forward-looking and the inspiring address. As BHISM sets out to engage with issues central to India's strategic thought and national security, it is only fitting that we return our attention to evolving realities of our frontiers and borders. In this context, there is no appropriate authority more to deliver the keynote address than the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, on the theme Frontiers, Borders and the LAC, the Middle Sector. A highly distinguished military leader, his extensive operational and strategic experience continues to shape India's defence preparedness and evolution of jointness across the armed forces. His presence and insights align closely with BHISM's objective of informed, policy-relevant strategic discourse. Sir, I now invite the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, to address the august gathering.
Hon'ble Governor of Uttarakhand State, Excellency Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, the man responsible for securing India in the middle sector, GOC-NC Central Command, General Singh Gupta, my co-regimental officer and a long-time friend of mine, General A.K. Singh, General Mishra, officers, veterans, people from Dehradun who are part of this tribe, and of course the very founding members of this, not tribe, BHISM. Somehow I get confused with what Singh Gupta is. So very good morning to all of you. When General A.K. Singh told me that I need to give a keynote address in Dehradun on the launch of BHISM, considering the aim and role of what BHISM is, considering where BHISM is going to get located, I thought that it will be relevant that I speak about frontiers, borders, and the line of control in the middle sector. Uttarakhand is a frontline state. Sometimes we forget this particular aspect because the border over here is peaceful, so as compared to what is there in, say, Ladakh, in, say, Sikkim, or in Arunachal Pradesh. But then I think most of us forget that the initial dispute between us and China on the border actually germinated over here. That was even before we signed the Panchsheel Agreement and immediately after the Panchsheel Agreement. So this particular border is as important as other borders. A frontier or a border lie at the furthest edge of a nation's edge, and hence sometimes they get neglected. It's also an area from where actually trouble begins. It's something like code, which starts from your extreme edges and then proceeds inwards. Disputed borders are always a source of conflict, and Lord Curzon, who was the Governor General over here, had once said that frontiers are a razor's edge on which the question of war and peace, and indeed the fate of nations lie. It's a matter of life and death for nations. Very recently we have started calling those last villages of ours, those frontier villages of ours, as our first villages. I think that's a step in very right direction. Frontiers and borders, we all know, are very exotic places. There is a different flora, fauna, culture, religious affiliation, etc. And but very few people actually get to visit those particular areas. People in uniform are very fortunate that we are not only visiting those areas regularly, interact with the locals over there, but we are also responsible for defending these frontline villages of ours. So these villages are actually our first line of defense, and hence the knowledge of our borders and frontiers should not be restricted to only people from the armed forces, but it should permeate down to everyone in this particular country. So what I'll do is today, I'll speak about frontiers, borders, and how LAC is involved in the middle sector, and I'll do it in three parts. First, I'll talk about some conceptual aspects, mostly definition as to what is the frontier, what's the border, what's the line of control, what's the line of actual control. Then I'll try and relate it to how this has evolved in the middle sector. And lastly, I wanted to speak about Himalayas, their divinity, their importance to us in matters of security. But partly that's been covered by Mr. Chopra. I'll see if there's something left. I don't think there is, but then I'll try and talk about Himalayas and then finally about BHISM. Modern nation states have evolved from erstwhile a feudal order, kingdoms, monarchies, etc., empires. And these kingdoms and empires actually were separated by vast undemarcated areas and not thin lines which borders are. So ancient kingdoms or medieval kingdoms had a general idea as to where their frontiers lie, from where they would carry out trade, from where people actually moved, and in those territories when they were threatened as to what they need to do. Most of these frontiers in olden times were based on rigid geographical features like deserts, seas, which were difficult to kind of negotiate. And these were frontiers, I would say, were always porous, and they were actually prone to interpretation. However, this concept of frontiers today is irrelevant because most of these areas which I said were impassable or difficult, on which frontiers were made, are today possible because of advance of science and technology. You can move, you can fly, etc. So what has happened is from there, these ancient kingdoms and all, we came on the concept of nation states. That's the Treaty of Westphalia, which had this concept of a nation state. And nation state was one which was conceived on a firm kind of and borders because there was a territory over which this nation state resided. So when you talk about nation state, a nation is based on a common history of people having the same ethnicity. They share a common language and culture, and probably they have a similar kind of vision for the future. Whereas a state is a political entity which is defined by a particular geographical limit, and a nation state as a concept is a combination of both of these together. So when we talk about a nation state, it primarily consists of three important elements. What's the territory of that particular nation state, the people who reside in the nation state, and the ideology of that particular nation state. And when we evolved from these kingdoms to nation states, which are modern constructs, we brought in this concept of borders. And a border is more defined accurately than a frontier, and it's a piece of territory whereas nations exercises extreme or sovereignty. Like other nations, Indian states were also used to this concept of frontiers, And it was because the British came here, then they started this, they wanted to have a firm borders over here also. And in fact, again, I quote Curzon, who said that in Asiatic countries, it would be true to say that demarcation had never taken place except under European pressures and by the intervention of European agents. So border is a kind of an geographic boundary between political entities or legal jurisdictions such as governments, sovereign states, and established through agreements between them. States agree upon and administrative boundaries that and then it appears on maps and then is finally demarcated on ground. So borders are kind of legal constructs that require documentation, negotiations, and recognition. So to differentiate between what is a frontier and a border and how a border is evolved from a frontier, let me try and kind of summarize whatever I have said. That border is identified by a line on a particular map as well as on the ground, whereas frontier is an area or a zone which is diffused and generic in nature. In Hindi, it would be something like a frontier is like Seema, that is a fixed shape or a zone, whereas border is a Seema, is a particular line. A border is a concept that separates two nation states, whereas a frontier is a meeting point of two civilizations. Borders define political and legal limits of a nation. A frontier may be based on political, cultural, maybe a political or cultural frontier. Borders, being political entities, are well guarded, they are well defended, whereas frontiers, because of the ruggedness which I said, may not be well guarded. Lastly, a border is agreed to between two nation states through formal documentation. A frontier is generally through customs, traditions, and usage. When we evolved from the concept of frontiers to borders, obviously the British also invoked three more terms to identify a particular border, that were delimitation, delineation, and demarcation. Delimitation is a process when you negotiate a border in which you try and identify what your border is in terms of a particular descriptive form, in terms of a language. It's written down, agreed. Whereas when you talk about delineation, it's a graphical or mathematical representation of the boundary on a map, and demarcation is the physical process of negotiating this boundary and put it in on ground. So once you delimit a particular border, then this process of delineation and demarcation starts. And they are generally done concurrently, and finally it results in some kind of a border agreement, and both the countries sign that particular agreement. To do this whole process, there is also some methods known as survey. We have Survey of India over here, and this is basically then produces some kind of maps, etc. Cartography also helps in identifying borders and lines of control. So now, what is a line of control? So what we see is when the British came here, the basic evolution of India's borders, I would say, were actually during the pre-independence period were guided by the British interest. They wanted to secure India, its northern frontiers. They thought it's their jewel in the crown, and there was a great game being played in the vast spaces of Central Asia. And it's from the Russian threat they wanted to have a firm kind of an border. So unsettled border, actually before the Britishers during the independence they left, they had not settled the northern borders accurately. And that's a situation which leads to conflict. As I said, what Curzon had said, unsettled border will lead to a conflict, and that conflict leads sometimes to the conflict is not perpetual. The dispute may be perpetual, but conflict is for a short while, and thereafter normally nations get into a ceasefire, some kind of peace, and that defines a ceasefire line. To give more permanency to that ceasefire line, that's the line of actual control or line of control. That's how it gets evolved from it. So when we say that ceasefire line could be a temporary line between two belligerents, which have said that they stop fighting, and of course it is could be changed. But whereas when we say a line of control, then it's negotiated between two sides, and as the name suggests, it means that the other side exercises control over in its sides of the line. So that's the basic difference between a ceasefire line and line of control. And over here we see we have a line of actual control which has got a similar kind of meaning. So this particular concept is not new, that is so not there in the Indian subcontinent only. We have the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea. We have the green line between the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots in the Republic of Cyprus. This is what the three terms. I thought that I'll explain this to you before I come on to the middle sector, in which as to how this border or frontier has evolved into a line of actual control. So the emergence of the state of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh as a governing entity is a post-independence phenomenon. They separated out from Punjab and Uttar Pradesh, but pre-independence, these particular geographical areas where they existed, were say governed by monarchs in say what Himachal is there, what Rampur Bushehr was there. We had the Chants ruling in Kumaon Hills and the Shahs ruling in Garhwal areas. And obviously these particular states would have interacted with what lay across the Himalayas, and what lay across the Himalayas was Tibet, and not exactly Tibet but Western Tibet, which is slightly different from Central Tibet, and there lay this kingdom of Zhangzhou. Obviously this was a Tibetan kingdom with the capital city at Yunlong, that's somewhere near Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarovar. Obviously, there would have been a lot of interaction between these two particular states. And let me, I'll go back from history actually. Let me start with mythology, which probably had described the frontier between us and the Tibetans. So the connect between the people of India and Tibet goes back almost to mythological times. Mount Meru in Hindu and Jain mythology refers to a cosmic mountain which is the center of the universe, and Mount Kailash is its actually physical manifestation. Mount Kailash is also holy for Tibetans and even for Paul religion. And in Mahabharata, when you describe the journey of actually Pandavas after the war going back towards heaven, which was supposed to be actually Mount Kailash, they traced the same routes. In fact, they walked through Mana villages, Bhimpur, Parvati Kund, Adi Kailash before they finally go towards Mount Kailash. In fact, in Western literature also, somewhat, but of course quite late, they also had this great fascination for this particular area, and this area was sometimes was a hidden place known as Shangri-La. This was made famous by James Hilton in his 1933 novel Lost Horizon, and it was based on a mythology of Shambhala, which is somewhere located in this mountainous region, and some people say it's lay in the Satluj Valley, which lies across the Himalayan and the Zanskar ranges. So I may have added this particular mythological connect between us and Tibet a long time back, but for any mythological tales, for people to believe, they have to be based on some kind of a geographical facts. So like if you say that Ram went to Lanka, there has to be Adam's Bridge, which is actually, if you see from satellite images, that exists. So that's why people would believe in it. So why should people believe in this mythology of Mount Kailash? Mount Kailash is part of the Kailash range, famous for what you all know. We occupied it in 2020. But Mount Kailash, though part of Kailash range, is slightly separated from it. The very shape of it, the remoteness of it, it lies beyond the great Himalayan ranges, it lies beyond the Zanskar ranges, the Kailash ranges. The difficulty of approaching it, and it being a singular kind of an entity, depicts a different kind of a picture and image. So that's why it's different. So coming back to history, probably between these two areas, the Indian dynasties which I spoke about, and then Western Tibet across, they would be historically pilgrims trying to cross over from here, and they normally used to cross over from passes of Shipkala, Niti, Mana, Penjunla and Nikule to visit Mansarovar and Mount Kailash. They were doing it in search of divinity. And obviously this traders would have followed this route of pilgrims, and these were called as bhotias, who were also appointed as adhikaris by the states themselves, and they also used, they would be negotiating the terms of the trade which lies across. And the very fact that these emissaries were sent by states for trade across says that there was a kind of a frontier, if not a border, between these two particular states. So Indians actually interacted more with Western Tibet than with Central Tibet. When I say Central Tibet, it lies in the valley of Sangpo near Lhasa and Shigatse, whereas Western Tibet is towards Gertok, about the middle sector. And most of the routes, like let's say Atisha or say Lord Padmasambhav, they all crossed over from this side and propagated Tibetanism on that means Buddhist religion. On the other side, this was because the core of Hindu civilization was here in the Gangetic Valley, and it was easier for people to cross. Whereas over there through Arunachal Pradesh, earlier known as Nepal, it was difficult to cross. So between the Sangpo Valley of Lhasa and say what was there in the Brahmaputra Valley, there was hardly any connect. There was a more connect between the Gangetic Valley and what lay on the Satluj Valley across. So that was one point, and it is from here which I said Lord Padmasambhav, Atisha, etc. went, and this is from where actually Buddhism got spread. So these frequent interactions and movement of pilgrims and traders resulted in some kind of sovereign enclaves being maintained in Tibet, and this arose out of a necessity actually, and these were small pockets of administrative areas or tax authority held by Ladakh and Bhutan, and they were recognized over a period of time for centuries. Some of these enclaves were Minsa, one of that which was of Ladakh, and that was arising out of Treaty of Tingmangsa. Imagine a sovereign state, sovereign territory of Ladakh being located inside it. And similarly, Bhutan had a number of such enclaves, Thofu, Janghe, Chakip, Kocha, Tharchen, Dharphuzum. These are all small little enclaves in and around Mansarovar, maintained by the Bhutanese. They were their sovereign territories except Tibet. So when you have a kind of an enclave in some other country's territory, that means you accept that there is a border before that, and then there is a kind of an enclave. So that's the point I am trying to make. So we see that means you accept that there is a border before that, and then there is a kind of an enclave. So that's the point I am trying to make. So we see this development of the frontier in the ancient times between us and Tibet. The arrival of the British, as I said earlier, emphasized on converting this frontier into a firm border, and the British along with them brought this particular concept of delimitation, demarcation, delineation, etc., and instruments, etc., and a whole lot of infrastructure, and created this survey of India to do all this, and to create that from a frontier to a border. The survey of India, who helped it to take? People from Uttarakhand. They were known as Pandits, and we have the story of great Indian explorers like Pandit Nan Singh and Pandit Kishan. They were actually trained, and then Britishers couldn't go, so they, on their behalf, they went and surveyed whole of Tibet. They tried to survey the boundary between us and Tibet. So we have this wonderful story of Pandit Nan Singh, who travelled all the way from Kathmandu to Lhasa and then to Mansarovar Lake, coming back to India. On his second journey, he travelled through Mana Pass to the gold mines at Thok. In his third journey from Shimla to Yarkand, and his final journey from there to Lhasa, from returning back to Uddhav. These are fantastic stories and journeys which Indians, people from Uttarakhand did for the British to try and see a firm border evolve. That's also his younger brother Kishan Singh also undertook similar kind of journeys right up to Yatur. So whatever the British tried to do to finalize this particular border between India and Tibet resulted in, you all are aware, in the east, the McMahon line. So finally there was some kind of a line on which we could say this lesser border. In Ladakh sector, there were a number of lines, Johnson-Aladgar line, McCartney-McDonald line, and these were all part of the Great Game. They kept shifting. But it's in the middle sector there was no line. Why was it? It's my own hypothesis that in this particular sector, by nature, probably Britishers felt that they had a kind of a frontier which was recognized as both sides, because over here, constantly people were moving to and fro. So on independence, of course, the British left, and they had to leave one day, and it was for India actually to decide where our frontier is. So Nehru probably knew that we had something as a McMahon line in the east, we had some kind of a claim in Ladakh area, but it was not here. So that's why he wanted to go in for a Panchsheel agreement, probably, And for the Chinese also, it was because when they had kind of liberated, so-called liberated Tibet, they had moved into Lhasa, they had moved into Xinjiang. This particular area was extreme from both the ends, so they wanted a stability probably in this particular region. So this area assumed some kind of a priority. So independent India was keen to build good relationship with China, and once it gained independence in 1940, with China, once it was independent in 1949, it pursued neither its claims for enclaves and gave up its special privileges which had inherited from the British. I forgot to mention that British also, after the Young Husband expedition, because of this great game which was taking place, did inherit some privileges like keeping of armed escorts and trade agents, and in the middle sector they were at Bharat. So once Tibet was occupied by China, so we gave up those privileges. We recognized China as for its permanent seat at United Nations, and this Himalayan buffer which was there between us and Tibet, that evaporated and that would convert into a border. In 1954, India recognized Tibet as part of China. Both countries signed the Panchsheel Agreement. With this, India assumed that it has settled its border, the northern border, the only area which we assumed that was not settled, through a formal kind of a treaty. For India, the legitimacy of this border now rested on the Panchsheel Agreement, which it thought had been demonstrated by identifying 6 passes through which trade would take place or pilgrims will go. That are Shipkila, Mana, Niti, Kangri Bangri, and Dharma and Nikuli. But the Chinese stand was that this agreement was negotiated only for trade, and it nowhere reflected the Chinese stand on the particular border dispute. So hence, this became a dispute, and as I said earlier, the controversy in the middle sector, the border dispute that existed between us and China, emerged first in the area of Palam Sunda, that was in 1950, much before the 1954 Panchsheel Agreement, and in Barahoti immediately after signing of the Panchsheel Agreement. So this underscores the sensitivity of this particular area, and the Ladakh and Sikkim and Nepal that time, that came in much later. So in fact, so it's only in 1950s, 1954, in 1959 again, when Chow Lai wrote a letter about that Indian troops are included, he mentioned a large number of places, that is Chua Chuje, Shipkila, Parigas, Tenchoks, Sungsha, that is Melang and Jedang, Palam Sunda, Sangcha Malla, and Lapthal. Most of this actually lie in the middle sector and Himachal Pradesh. That's Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. So there have been 2 map exchanges trying to find out as to where our areas lie or where the blood dispute lies, and that's one during the 1960 border talks and once in 2000, and that's led to a formulation of some kind of a line of actual control. The respective perception of boundaries of both these countries are now well documented in the 1960 border talks and the official report. So we see this particular frontier, which I described from mythological times to historical times, emerging, British attempts to make it as a border, and finally after the British leave, it's become a line of actual control. So this is also the area where there is a maximum convergence between us and the Chinese perception of the boundary. So this gives us some kind of an hope that although the dispute may have started from the middle sector, probably the road to peace, which in some manner was being mentioned, may also lie over here. So I would say that the middle sector is central for both countries due to minimal differing perceptions of the LSE, and this is where probably a solution may also lie. So this is all what I wanted to talk about the middle sector with respect to frontiers, borders, and the line of control. And I said, talk something about the Himalayas actually. Of course, the Himalayas have been a source of divinity for us for a long time. They have been a source of inspiration. And like we all believe that these are the ones which actually have secured us. Someone said that Khyber Pass was the one from where all the invasions came from, and Himalayas actually protected us. When I say they're a living embodiment of divinity, in the Puranic imagination, they were Himbat, the father of Parvati, abode of Shiva, and the cosmic axis from where the great rivers descend. So geographically also, if you see where actually Mount Kailash lies, we have the Sangpo flowing towards east, we have the Satluj and Indus flowing towards west, and one more tributary of Indus actually. So there are 4 rivers emanating from that particular place. So this particular place has also been associated with rishis, siddhas, tapasvis, trying to gain knowledge in this particular place. So Himalayas have functioned more as a zone of interaction rather than a border of exclusion. But sometimes, although we associate ourselves, our frontiers, the borders may lie at the Himalayas, but I must say that it's not true because it's not on the Great Himalayan Range where our borders lie. They lie on the Zanskar Range, which is slightly ahead. So that's a geographical fact. Although when we say the Great Himalayan Range, you could consider that as a big frontier. That would be true, but the border actually lies on Zanskar and not on the Great Himalayan Ranges. So, middle sector like Jan A.K. Bottom assumes occupies a unique place in their strategic geography. It's the interaction of Dev Bhumi and Sana Bhumi, both. Uttarakhand is a civilization landscape where the sacred and the strategic have been coexisting for millennia, for ages actually. The headwaters of Ganga and Jamuna, the shrines of Kedarnath, Badrinath, Gangotri, presence of ascetic privileges, metaphysical traditions have made this region a Dev Bhumi. And this is important. And the right place actually to have a think tank like BHISM, because of the reasons which I said. Think tank in Dehradun is therefore uniquely positioned to develop strategic thought that is terrain conscious, system oriented, and long horizon in its character. From climate to water security to border management, military transformation, disaster resilience, and civilizational continuity, the Himalayan force it will integrate that kind of a thinking. And not only integrate that thinking, probably the thought process from here will permeate down below to the rest of the country. And over here, I'm not very good at Sanskrit, as good as AK, but I'm trying to read out something. Yatra Ganga, Divoptapana, Shikharat Parvati, Tara Vidya Dipa, Sarvatra Parvate. As the Ganges flows down from its sacred source, may the light of learning may also spread from here, Uttarakhand, downstream to the rest of the country. That was all, ladies and gentlemen, I had to speak. Thank you all for inviting me for this inaugural address. And may this particular time prosper in times to come. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful address which combines strategic reflection into long-term vision, also offering valuable insight into the past, present, and the forever evolving operational dynamics. We now move on to the most important part of the event, that is the release of the 2 institutional papers. And for that, I would welcome upon stage His Excellency, the Hon'ble Governor of Uttarakhand, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, Lieutenant General A.K. Singh, GOC-INC Central Command General, Lieutenant General Anindya Sen Gupta, Major General Abhay Karki, Colonel Dr. Girija Shankar Mungli, and Mr. Rajan Arya, and offers an analytical framework that connects historical intellectual wisdom with the modern statecraft. His Excellency, Honorable Governor of Uttarakhand, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, is a highly respected military leader and a constitutional authority. His distinguished service and continued commitment to public life will lend both depth and perspective to today's deliberation. I now respectfully invite His Excellency to share his address with us.
वंदे मातरम, जय हिंद। आज अलग ही दिन है क्योंकि आज हमने पहली बार एज ए मैटर ऑफ प्रोसीजर आज पहले हमने वंदे मातरम की 6 स्टैंडर्ड्स को इकट्ठा शुरुआत की है और ऐसा लगा कि आज उस भारत शब्द का ये जो नाम दिया है इसमें भारत आना अपने आप से बहुत बड़ा एक स्टेप है क्योंकि जहां इंडिया आता था वहाँ जैसे CDS साहब ने एक्सप्लेन किया LAC LOC आता था, लेकिन जहाँ भारत है वहाँ सिर्फ एक ही शब्द आता है, ग्रेटर इंडिया। इट टेक्स इंडिया टू ग्रेटर हाइट बाय इंक्लूडिंग दिस वर्ड भारत। आज वैसे भी 13 तारीख है, गुरु नानक देव जी ने कहा है कि सब कुछ 13, तो ऐसा लगता है कि जो भी जीवन में सीखा है उसको किस प्रकार शब्दों से पूरे संसार के साथ बांटा जाए। तो आज बहुत ही शुभ कार्य किया है, ये जो भीष्म शब्द किया है, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि उत्तराखंड की आत्मा से, भारत की आत्मा से ये जो वर्ड हिमालय हमने अपने इंटरनेशनल और स्ट्रैटेजिक वर्ड के साथ जोड़ा है। हमें ऐसा लगता है कि हम अपनी प्रायोरिटी तो नहीं भूल गए थे हिमालयस की। ऐसा लगता है कि हमारी जो सरहद है, जैसा CDS साहब ने बोला कि कहानी LAC LOC एक तरफ जो आर्टिफिशियल है, लेकिन जो मोस्ट नेचुरल है वो बॉर्डर और फ्रंटियर्स की है, वो कहानी बॉर्डर्स की है। उसमें तो फिर ऐसा लगता है जैसे पाकिस्तान सिर्फ एक बबल, एक टेम्पररी सिचुएशन है। हम अपनी सोच को उस स्तर पर कैसे लेके जाएं, उस हिमालयन की ऊंचाई की तरफ कैसे लेके जाएं। मुझे लगता है ये जो भीष्म शब्द है अपने आप से, कभी ऐसा लगता है कि शब्द WORD इतने पावरफुल हैं। कोई कहता है आप कहाँ जा रहे हैं, मैं कहता हूँ गुरुद्वारे जा रहा हूँ। कहते किस लिए जा रहे हैं? शब्द सुनने के लिए। उस WORD के अंदर में D से पहले L लगा दो तो वर्ल्ड बन जाता है। ये शब्द ही हैं जो वर्ल्ड को रूपरेखा देते हैं। अगर ताली मारिए तो जोर से मारिए। आज सचमुच इसको देख रहा तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि ये स्ट्रैटेजिक मंच ही नहीं, ये मार्च है। ये हमारा जो थिंक टैंक है और हिमालय का साथ में जो इस टैंक को हिमालय के ऊपर चढ़ाया है, ये टैंक थिंक करता है और उस थिंक के अंदर में इंक है। और मुझे लगता है कि सच कहूँ तो जब मैं लखनऊ गया था तो वहाँ पर मैंने स्ट्राइक, जो उनका एक बहुत सुंदर कम्युनिटी है जिसके अंदर में स्ट्रैटेजिक डिस्कशन करते हैं, तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि हमारे उत्तराखंड का एक स्ट्रैटेजिक मंच और मार्च होना चाहिए जो उस स्तर का होना चाहिए जिस प्रकार हमारा हिमालय है। 2 बॉर्डर हैं हमारे पास और एक तो LAC है जिसको बॉर्डर बनाना है, ये हमारा सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है। और तिब्बत को न जाने क्यों लोग कहते हैं कि इंडिया चाइना बॉर्डर है, बट ये तो इंडिया तिब्बत बॉर्डर है, क्योंकि जिस प्रकार हमारे ITBP अपने कंधों के ऊपर में एक संदेश लेकर हर वक्त चलते हैं, इट इज द इंडियन टिबेटन बॉर्डर पुलिस। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उस तरह की सोच इस भीष्म से ही निकलेगी, इस प्रकार से ऐसा लगता है। और मुझे बहुत खुशी है, आई वुड लाइक टू कॉम्प्लीमेंट सेंट्रल आर्मी कमांडर जनरल सेन गुप्ता कि इन्होंने जो उत्तराखंड को एक बहुत सुंदर एक नई सोच के साथ मिलाया है। इन्होंने और सिंदूर से पहले, आई वुड लाइक टू अंडरलाइन, पहले इन्होंने ड्रोन का सिंपोजियम किया। इन्होंने इंडस्ट्री को और आर्मी को ड्रोन के साथ मिलाकर सिंपोजियम और सेमिनार किया और सिंदूर से पहले ही वो ड्रोन को एक अलग स्तर दिया। मैं उस वक्त सोच रहा था ये ड्रोन के स्पेलिंग किसने बनाए हैं, जिसके अंदर में DR डॉक्टर ONE1। सचमुच उस ड्रोन ने ही पूरे सिंदूर को एक बहुत बड़ी परिभाषा दी थी। और मैं ये भी आई वुड लाइक टू अप्रिशिएट सेंट्रल कमांड कि आपने एक सेमिनार किया नदर्न बॉर्डर्स के बारे में लखनऊ के अंदर, और अभी हाल ही के अंदर में एक सेमिनार किया जो एक बिल्कुल स्ट्रैटेजिक न्यू थॉट थी कि मिलिट्री सिविल फ्यूजन कैसे होना चाहिए। क्योंकि ये जो सिक्योरिटी है ये सिर्फ मिलिट्री का कार्य नहीं है, ये संपूर्ण राष्ट्र का कार्य है। इसलिए इसके अंदर में फ्यूजन होना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। और वो जो सोच आपने उस सेमिनार में एम्बेड की थी, वो मुझे लगता है वो पूरे भारत को एक नई दिशा में लेके जाएगी कि किस प्रकार हर भारतीय को एक सैनिक के रूप में राष्ट्रीय रक्षा की तरफ में किस प्रकार आना। मैं जब अपने हमारे जो फौजी हैं उत्तराखंड के अंदर, जब मैं उनके कार्य को देखता हूँ, जो उन्होंने माना के अंदर में डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट में किया, जो उन्होंने धराली के अंदर में किया, वो पूरे देश के लिए एक उदाहरण था कि डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट में किस प्रकार आर्मी एंड सिविल शुड कम टुगेदर इन सब challenges. In fact, I was very happy I have given unit citation to both 7 Assam for Mana and 14 Rajrif for Dharali. ये एक एग्जाम्पल है पूरे भारत के लिए कि डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट किस प्रकार से आर्मी और सिविल इकट्ठे आने चाहिए। और मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि आज वो दिन आया कि हमने सब ने इकट्ठा होकर ये विश्व का एक शुभारंभ किया। देखिए, कभी कभी ऐसा होता है कि ऐसा लगता है ये ब्रह्मांड का खेल है। जिस प्रकार जनरल एके ने एक नया रूप धारण करके मंत्रों से यज्ञ किया आज तो ऐसा लगा कि जो एक उत्तराखंड की एक नेचुरल एक शक्ति है, एक डिविनिटी की, एक शिव शक्ति की, उसको जिस प्रकार आपने मिलाया है, मैं बिग कॉम्प्लीमेंट किया। आई वाज वेरी इम्प्रेस्ड। ये जो आज शुभ आरंभ हुआ है, सच कहूं तो मुझे अत्यंत गौरव हो रहा है, एक आत्म संतोष हो रहा है, बिग सेटिस्फैक्शन, और एक गहन राष्ट्रीय दायित्व बोध का एक अनुभूति हो रही है। I can feel the vibration that Uttarakhand has taken the responsibility, that we will contribute into the collective thought how to take on the challenges of national security. यह क्षण, this moment of inaugurating this beautiful Manch or a march as I said, ये भारत की रणनीतिक चेतना, मैं तो हर एक चीज को 3 शिवजी के त्रिशूल की नजर से ही देखता हूं। इसने रणनीतिक चेतना, सभ्यगत आत्मविश्वास और दीर्घकालिक राष्ट्रीय संकल्प का एक नए अध्याय को उद्बोध किया। My compliments to very thought actually has generated newness into our efforts towards the national security. And ये बहुत गरिमामयी अवसर है कि चीफ ऑफ स्टाफ सीडीएस साहब जनरल अनिल चौहान जी और आप सब इकट्ठे हुए हैं। कभी कभी लगता है ये उत्तराखंड और नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एक अलग ही चैप्टर है। क्या कारण है कि आज नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइजर भी उत्तराखंड के हैं, पहले सीडीएस साहब भी जनरल विपिन जी भी उत्तराखंड के थे, और अभी करंट सीडीएस साहब भी उत्तराखंड के हैं। कभी कभी इससे आगे मैं चलता हूं तो ऐसा लगता है कि माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी भी एक फौजी के बेटे हैं, हमारी स्पीकर भी एक जनरल साहब की बेटी है, हमारे गवर्नर साहब भी एक पुराने फौजी हैं, और मैं अगर आपसे साझा करूं तो जो चीफ जस्टिस साहब अभी पहले थे वो भी एक फौजी के बेटे थे। यहाँ तो जैसे आपने कहा सैन्य भूमि है, वीर भूमि है, तप भूमि है, ये वो भूमि है जिसने राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा को न जाने सदियों से किया है। So therefore this vibration must come out of it, and I'm very happy that this forum is going to play a very important role in that arena. Himalayas are living strategic system. They shape our borders, our climate, our water security, our cultural identity, our defense posture. Anyone who has commanded troops in these regions know that the policy decision taken far away without terrain intimacy often carry unseen costs. We saw it in 62. We cannot repeat it. So therefore it is important that we must understand the very value of the Himalayas in the whole thought process of national security. BHISM location in Dehradun is therefore not incidental, it is deliberate. ये प्रभु का एक बहुत सोचा समझा एक कदम है. जोर से ताली मारिए. ये जो ताली जो दिल से निकलती है ना, आत्मा से निकलती है, ये बहुत पावरफुल होती है. ये अपने आप से आती है, ये प्री प्लान नहीं होती है. And they actually bind us into a collective thought. I think that is what is important. Within a very short radius, we have, अगर आप देहरादून को देखें, तो यहाँ पर 78 गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और इंस्टीट्यूशंस है. Prominently, if you look at it, IME, लाल बहादुर शास्त्री नेशनल एकेडमी ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, संजीव जी की. यहाँ पर हर एक जो इंस्टीट्यूशन है, चाहे वो फॉरेस्ट रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट है, सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया, वाइल्ड लाइफ इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडिया, वाडिया इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ हिमालयन जियोलॉजी, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सॉइल एंड वाटर कंजर्वेशन, नेशनल हाइड्रोलॉजिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, ये हमको एक इंटीग्रेटेड थॉट के लिए एक बहुत सुंदर स्थान पेश करता है. और आज के नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पर्सपेक्टिव के अंदर में इंटीग्रेशन, वननेस इज मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड आई वुड लाइक टू कॉम्प्लीमेंट द सीडीएस. सीडीएस साहब ने बहुत ही सुंदर तरीके से पूरी इंडियन आर्मी को एक इंटीग्रेशन साइकोलॉजिकल के अंदर में बांधा है. उन्होंने हमको थिएटराइजेशन की तरफ में बहुत सुंदर मार्क किया. अभी हाल ही में जो इन्होंने एक किताब लिखी थी बहुत सुंदर, विच यू मस्ट रीड, ready, relevant, and taking us towards the integrated forum. My big compliments to you, the way you are integrated the entire process. कभी ऐसा लगता था कि इस सोच को आगे कैसे लेके जाएंगे, किस प्रकार से हम उस त्रिशूल की तरह आर्मी नेवी एयरफोर्स को एक पावर के अंदर में गढ़ेंगे. आई एम वेरी हैप्पी दैट यू शेप्ड इट अप सो ब्यूटीफुल. ये जितने भी प्रतिष्ठित संस्थानों का मैंने जिक्र किया है, इनकी विशेषज्ञता और ज्ञान के भंडार को एक सूत्र में पिरोकर, therefore this BHISM must integrate all of them into this collective effort. एक ऐसे बौद्धिक छत्र के रूप में उभरेगा, मुझे ऐसा लगता है, जो भारत की रणनीतिक क्षमता को नई ऊंचाइयां प्रदान करेगा. एक बड़ा सुंदर छोटा सा सेंटेंस लिखा है, मुझे तो बहुत अच्छा लगा. आई वांट टू शेयर विद यू. लिखा है, BHISM केवल नाम नहीं, यह एक प्रतिज्ञा है. It's a resolution, it's a संकल्प, it's a collective resolution what we are going to do with this word BHISM hereafter. क्योंकि ये जो वेद व्यास जी की धरती है, ये जो वेद पुराण उपनिषदों की धरती है, महाभारत के भीष्म पितामह ने जीवन भर एक ही व्रत निभाया, और वो व्रत था नेशन फर्स्ट, राष्ट्र सर्वोपरि. आज यह संस्थान भी वही प्रतिज्ञा ले रहा है, बौद्धिक ईमानदारी की, निर्भीक सत्य की और राष्ट्र हित की. ये तीनों प्रभु के ही आदेश है, ईमानदारी, निर्भीक और राष्ट्र हित. मैं मानता हूं कि भारत को आज केवल ताकतवर नहीं बल्कि विचारवान भी होना चाहिए. अगर आपने विश्व गुरु बनना है, विकसित राष्ट्र बनना है, आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनना है, तो सबसे पहले उसमें सोच, विचार और धारणा का एक नया रूप लेना होगा. BHISM इसी विचारशील शक्ति का केंद्र बनेगा. लाइफ की सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम क्या, अभी मैंने बात ही शुरू नहीं की है, 15 मिनट खत्म हो गए हैं. कभी कभी ऐसा लगता है जब आत्मा से बोलो तो समय का पता ही नहीं लगता कैसे निकल जाता है. So I'm left with more 5 minutes. That's for all. भगवान शिव के त्रिशूल की भांति ये संस्थान 3 ऐसे वज्र स्तंभों, 3 pillars, बौद्धिक कठोरता, समावेशी संवाद, प्रगतिशील कार्रवाई पर टिका होगा. क्योंकि जनरल एके ने इतने सुंदर शब्द बोले थे हिंदी में, मेरे को भी तो बोलने पड़ेंगे. Actually, we understood one thing in Uttarakhand or in the nation, that border management is no longer just about fencing and deployment. It's not only about the border forces only. It involves the infrastructure planning, technology, integration, community engagement, and environmental sensitivity. It's about vibrant location. It's about integrated. It's about fusion. मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को दाद देता हूँ. मैं उस पल उनके साथ में था जब उन्होंने कहा कि माना आखिरी गांव नहीं है, ये प्रथम गांव है. He changed the entire perception of it. Earlier we had Chinese planning 646 border villages along this border. लेकिन माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की एक सोच ने, एक विचार ने, एक राष्ट्र के विकास के विचार ने 2751 वाइब्रेंट विलेजेस को आइडेंटिफाई किया और हमारे उत्तराखंड के अंदर में 51 को फेज 1 में, 17 आर इन फेज 1, 51 आर इन टोटल. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि इन गांव में जो एक बदलाव आया है उसने एक पूरी सोच को बदलाव किया है. And to add vibration into that idea, like what Central Army Command did, they started this process of military-civil fusion to such a level that the Indian Army has tied up with the G.B. Pant University for millet program. They have tied up with Open University for education. ये जो integration है, ये जो समावेशी, comprehensive, composite look है, this is what we got to change. मुझे लगता है कि विश्व इसी प्रकार के विचारों को एक अलग ही गति और शक्ति देगा. Disaster management in Himalayan states demand scientific modeling, local awareness, rapid response capability, and long-term ecological balance, combined with the blessing that the armed forces out here. I think each one of them have got to combine together to give us a solution. We have to be the solution provider. I think that's where this BHISM platform, ये मंच उनको सबको अपने विचारों को रखने के लिए एक अवसर देंगे. मैं स्पष्ट रूप से कहना चाहता हूँ, बड़ा सुंदर लिखा है जब हम रीडिंग है. भारत की रणनीतिक गहराई जितनी महासागरों में है उतनी ही हिमालय की उन ऊंचाइयों में भी है. सप्लाई चेन, जल संसाधन, ऊर्जा सुरक्षा, सीमा स्थिरता, ये सभी हिमालय से जुड़े हैं. निश्चित ही विश्व इस हिमालय क्षेत्र को वैश्विक विमर्श के केंद्र में लाएगा. दिस इज योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. आज भारत अमृतकाल के उस स्वर्णिम पथ पर है जहां हमारी दृष्टि केवल अगले कुछ वर्षों पर नहीं बल्कि विकसित भारत 2047 और 21st सेंचुरी की तरफ होनी चाहिए. इसके लिए नए विचार चाहिए. संजीव जी ने इतना सुंदर से कहा, we got to shed out some of the old thoughts. The things are changing. We got to identify what is becoming irrelevant in today's scenario. Therefore, new thoughts have to be brought in. New concepts have got to be brought in. 21st century demands our relationship with AI, metaverse, quantum computing, space, cyber, nanotechnology, critical technology, semiconductor, chips. Our relationship has got to change. ये जो सिन और दूर ने हमको दूर का जो एक दृश्य दिखाया है वो यही है कि फ्यूचर वॉरफेयर किस प्रकार होने वाला है. ये विषम आने वाले समय के लिए हमको उस दृश्य की तरफ ले जाना बहुत जरूरी है. मुझे आई एम डेफिनेट अबाउट इट कि यह मंच केवल पारंपरिक युद्ध नीतियों पर चर्चा नहीं करेगा बल्कि यह समग्र सुरक्षा के सभी आयामों का अध्ययन करेगा. यहाँ होने वाला मंथन यह सुनिश्चित करेगा कि भारत एक आत्मनिर्भर राष्ट्र के रूप में विश्व पटल पर अपनी पहचान कैसे मजबूत करेगा. Uttarakhand has always contributed disproportionately to the national service. 17.38% of armed forces come from Uttarakhand. First Paramveer Chakra was from the RNC. And 1734 martyrs. I think we have to contribute a lot towards the collective thought of the nation's security. Our youth join armed forces in large number. Discipline and duty are woven into our social fiber. It is only natural that strategic thought emerging from this soil carries that same seriousness of purpose. I want to share with you. सीरियस अब यहाँ है तो इसलिए खास तौर पर मैं यूज करना चाहता हूँ कि शायद कारगिल दिवस हमने मनाया, विजय दिवस, और मैंने एक 9 साल की लड़की से पूछा, एनसीसी की लड़की से, मैंने बोला बेटा आप बड़े होकर क्या करेंगे, आपका मिशन क्या है? जाने, you'll be surprised what this little girl tells me. She tells me मैं बड़ी होकर सीडीएस बनूंगी। हमारी बेटियां भी सीडीएस बनना चाहती हैं। Then I went to Uttaranchal Technical University. We were having a hackathon on AI application, and one of our baby who was participating in, I asked her to explain what application she was fielding. She told me, बात करते करते, राज्यपाल जी, I love technology. हमारी बेटियां टेक्नोलॉजी को लव करती हैं। बाकी दुनिया की कॉलेजेस और यूनिवर्सिटी में लव का क्या मतलब पता नहीं है, लेकिन हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी में दे लव टेक्नोलॉजी। तो मुझे लगता है ये जो मिश्रण है, एक तरफ हमारी बेटी सीरियस बनना चाहती है, दूसरी तरफ हमारी बेटी शी लव्स टेक्नोलॉजी, तो हमारा जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो एब्सोल्युटली विल बी ऑफ डिफरेंट लेवल। आई एम डेफिनेट अबाउट इट। अंडर द विजनरी लीडरशिप ऑफ ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, India is moving decisively towards becoming a Viksit Bharat by 2047. Emphasis is on self-reliance, security, technological innovations. Civilizational confidence demands institutions that think deeply and responsibly. ऐसी इंस्टीट्यूशन जिसके अंदर में जनरल साहब सब मंत्र का उच्चारण भी करते हैं और दूसरे जनरल साहब आने वाले सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस का भी बताते हैं। आई थिंक ये दोनों को मिक्स करके इज व्हाट द विजन शुड बी डूइंग द टास्क। अंत में बहुत ताकतवर पैराग्राफ होता है जब बोलते हैं अंत में मैं विश्वास के साथ कह सकता हूं कि देवभूमि से प्रज्वलित ये जो स्टार्ट हुआ है, ये शुभारंभ हुआ है, जो गणेश जी का आशीर्वाद आज इस मंच को मिला है, यह रणनीतिक ज्योति भारत के भविष्य को आलोकित करेगी। अब भारत केवल सुरक्षित नहीं रहेगा, भारत निर्णायक भी बनेगा। भारत केवल विकसित नहीं होगा, भारत विश्व को दिशा भी देगा। वर्ल्ड इज लुकिंग एट अस। They come to our Prime Minister to seek advice on so many international matters. Actually, we must understand our self-value and worth, and it must reflect from our pen too. I wish BHISM clarity of purpose, strength of scholarship, and discipline to build for generations to come. आइए हम संकल्प लें, let's take resolution. जो गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी ने कहा है, निश्चय कर अपनी जीत करो। हम संकल्प लें, हिमालय की दृढ़ता के साथ, राष्ट्र प्रथम के भाव से, भारत माता के प्रति पूर्ण समर्पण के साथ, सरेंडर समर्पण के साथ हम विकसित भारत 2047 की यात्रा को सशक्त बनाएंगे। इस आह्वान, विश्वास और मंगल कामना के साथ मैं आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ। आज बहुत खुशी हुई कि हमारे ऐसी आत्माएं हमारे साथ में आज जुड़ी हैं। बहुत खुशी हुई नितिन गोखले जी को देखकर। आई एम डेफिनेट दैट दिस विल टेक अस टू डिफरेंट लेवल। तरुण विजय जी यहाँ आए हैं, बहुत अच्छा हुआ है। हमारी मैडम एक बार खड़े हो जाएंगे, इनको पता लगना चाहिए सबको कि हमारा परिवार पूरा विदेश। Please. And I'm thankful to each one of you. In fact, my request to each one, हर एक आत्मा जो यहाँ बैठी हुई है, don't keep this idea to your only अपने नाक के पास में कि हमने BHISM को शुरू किया। You are the brand ambassador. आपने इस शुभारंभ के अंदर में एक हिस्सा लिया है। आपकी जिम्मेवारी है कि आप इसका प्रचार प्रसार, whatever method, whatever power of communication you have under your command, You must share with everyone in the world that new think tank has been created and it is going to create its own place in the coming time. और आज एक बार फिर आज बहुत खुशी हुई कि आज हमने एक नया प्रोसेस को we put into our system where we started the thing 3 मिनट 10 सेकंड के वंदे मातरम से। और मुझे कभी कभी ऐसे लगता है ये वंदे मातरम उत्तराखंड को मद्देनजर रख के ही लिखा गया, नहीं तो ऐसा कहना सुजलाम मतलब गंगा जी के अमृत के पानी को सुजलाम कहना, हमारे फल और फूलों को सुफलाम कहना, हमारे मलय शीतलाम, क्योंकि जो हवा यहाँ है, जो शीतलम हवा यहाँ है, मुझे लगता है यहीं से शुरुआत की होगी सोचने। अंत में वंदे मातरम उसी भारत माता की नाम से ये जो भारत शुरू हुआ है, जो भारत की सोच शुरू हुई है, जो इंडिया की सोच से बहुत अलग है, उस भारत के अंदर में कोई एलएसी एलओसी नहीं, उसके अंदर में सिर्फ बॉर्डर्स हैं। ये सोच को इसी सोच के साथ भारत माता की जय और जय हिंद।
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Your keynote, infused with energy and wisdom, beautifully reminded us that collective purpose and togetherness are the true strength behind this initiative. Now, to formally conclude today's proceedings, it is my privilege to invite Major General Abhay Karki, retired, a distinguished officer with respected voice within the strategic and veterans community. General Karki brings with him a wealth of experience in leadership, organizational stewardship, and institutional engagement. Sir, I now invite you to deliver the vote of thanks and formally conclude this event.
Hon'ble Governor of Uttarakhand, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, Chief of Defence Staff, Lieutenant General Anil Chauhan, GOCC Central Command, Lieutenant General Anand Singh Gupta, and Lieutenant General D.J. Mishra, GOC-UB area. Distinguished guests, eminent scholars, media fraternity, officers, and dear friends. On behalf of Team BHISM, it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this historic occasion. Honorable Governor Sir, we are deeply honored by your gracious presence here today. As our patron, your presence lends dignity and vision to this initiative. We are grateful for your guidance and encouragement. It gives us the heft and the conviction that we shall be a success. We are profoundly grateful for the CDS, General Anil Chauhan, for being here despite his busy schedule. He will be leaving for Pune from here soon. Your guidance, motivation, and support in conceptualizing and shaping BHISM needs no mention. Your keynote address here today symbolizes the vital link between strategic thought and national security, especially clarifying the perception of frontiers where LACs have muddled the issue. Our sincere thanks also goes out to GOC&C Central Command, Lieutenant General Anand Gupta, for being a solid pillar of support. As you have brought out, sir, security, geography, and population of the Himalayan region are a common subject of focus for BHISM as well as for the defense forces. Strategic thinking must always be informed by operational realities, and the lived experience of those who serve in these frontiers makes a lot of difference. Your talk, sir, has therefore been most apt in this context, especially when you talked of the population, the reverse migration, and the other issues. We shall focus on this together with your help. Gratitude and sincere thanks also to Mr. Sanjeev Chopra for his wonderful speech today, which has brought into perspective what we should be shedding and what we should be retaining and what we should be aiming for. Thank you, sir, for accepting to be part of our BHISM fraternity. I would also like to place on record our sincere gratitude to our trustees who have provided BHISM the umbrella of wisdom, knowledge, and moral support. Your trust in us and your support is vital to the spirit of BHISM activities as we now generate and move on to the next step. Also, a specific word of thanks to Dr. Colonel Girija Shankar Mumliji, who is here with us today. Also, Professor Durgesh Pant, Colonel Professor Diwan Singh Rawat, who is not here, but he has been behind the initiative. Professor Surekha Sangwan, Mr. Rajan Arya, and Mr. Nitin Gokhale. Thank you so much. Your commitment towards us makes us feel more stronger. The launch of BHISM today marks not only the inauguration of an institution, but the beginning of the journey of ideas, debate, research, and dialogue. In this process, we seek to draw heavily on the domain expertise of the eminent members of the audience representing the government, academia, industry, media, citizens of Uttarakhand. Your presence transforms the inauguration of BHISM into a shared commitment rather than a solitary standalone initiative. Thank you all for your presence and for taking out your valuable time. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Now may I request everyone to kindly rise for the national song and the national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे, तब शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तब जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे, जय हे, जय हे, जय 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 हे।
Thank you so much, everyone.